Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. I'm in the studio with my buddy Josh Kaczmarek. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
I'm stoked to have you, as I am typically when I have guests in the studio. And today I asked you to come in, and we've been trying to put this together for quite some time.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's been a lot of things happening and busy schedules and whatever, but we kind of made the commitment to doing this at the event. Like we got to do this that we're about to talk about, and that is Atlanta Range Day, which happened back Memorial Weekend of this year, 2023.
Yep.
It's a great event. Again, Atlanta, it was in Covington, Georgia. The actual range was in Covington, Georgia, which is just outside, basically, I guess, Atlanta proper.
Everything was 45 minutes from where we were. No matter where we were going, it was 45 minutes. So about 45 minutes from the airport. Yeah,
it was an awesome event. And I wanted to get together with you and sort of talk almost through like an after action review on this and kind of go through a lot of the things. I think the overview going into this podcast is to bring awareness to what great events look like. And the successes that I think Sean from Exoteric and his team out there are having with this event, is this was the second year that it's been done in a time where people are trying to kind of figure out the right formula for how to do one of these things and make it really go off.
Yeah.
So we had to get on airplanes and travel, which is always the thing.
It was.
So the interesting part about this is my introduction to you came from one of these events. It was the first, was it the original? Was the second year of California? No, it was the first year of California Range Weekend. God, it's been 3 years.
Year three for that one.
Which is one of the great parts about these events is the getting introduced to the people within the community, and we happen to be a couple groups of people, confluence events. We go back like Manzano Tactical up here in Northern California was the catalyst, I think, for a lot of this. And we got down to Southern California and then spent time on the range. We're able to exchange notes. And so there's a lot of me talking right now. I think we get into the ARD thing. But the reason I love having these conversations with you, Josh, is a couple of reasons. One, I find you to be very transparent about how you give feedback, right? You do it well.
I like to be straight to the point and just kind of cut the BS.
Yeah, well, so that's why I wanted to have you here, because anytime I've got questions or we get into these discussions, I find them to be very productive. So that was one thing. The other thing is I find you to be very analytical in a very good way in terms of looking at the big picture and then being able to break things down into their constituent parts and really have like a pragmatic approach to making decisions, even your training, which we've done a lot together. I was kind of thinking about it on my walk down here this morning, just going, I wonder how many hours Josh and I have actually spent training together. It's substantial.
It would be a lot if you consider the events that we've been to, and like you said, Kyle's classes and CRWs and stuff like that. It's a lot. And we've also had some crossover instructors too, people that you've taken and I've taken at different times and things like that. So,
which is the other reason I wanted to have you in, because at ARD, we actually did take the same session at a different time or for the same instructor at a different time. And there was some comparing and contrasting, but we've always been able to do that. And you've been the first person I've always reached out to. So what did you take away? And what did you get when you went to this space or to this particular spot in the course? And so there's just so many reasons outside of I find you to be a really good dude. And this was just a great opportunity to kind of get a good dude into the studio and again, go through this event that we went to that is very supportive of the 2A community. And it's an East Coast event. So there's some differences, some similarities and differences there that I wanted to talk about to give some people some insight to it.
Yeah.
But let's start with you just giving us a little bit of background on you.
Sure. Like you said, my name's Josh. I moved out to California in September of 2015. So I'm a transplant originally from the Midwest, grew up in Detroit, Michigan. As far as how introduced to firearms and stuff like that, in the Midwest, it's very normal for households to have guns, things like that. My dad was a hunter. He used to hunt whitetail deer and pheasant. So I grew up with guns. I wasn't an avid hunter myself, but got like the safety education and stuff like that. So it was just kind of around them and shot. But I can't say it was a large part of my life. Moved out to California, and something I got interested in, some big community out here is airsoft. And so I started airsofting out here, and that was really kind of my introduction to kind of the California gun scene, I guess. it was something that I could do for activity and recreation, socialization. And it was, at least for me, in the group that I went out and played with, we tried to add some tactics into it as well and just try to, try to learn some things as best we could. Airsoft isn't a perfect one-to-one correlation, but it does give you the opportunity to learn some things. As I kind of grew here, the pandemic occurred, and I wanted to go out and purchase my first firearm. I was kind of hesitant because of all the gun laws out here in California.
Understandable, yeah.
But when all that stuff was happening and the riots and all that stuff, I wanted to have something that I could protect myself and my wife at the time. So purchased a Glock 21 and a Chris Vector at that time. And then that was kind of what I had to start learning and training. And then started taking some of Kyle's classes and then got more and more involved and just I fell in love with kind of shooting and the sports aspect. And now I'm shooting competitions, things like that. So it just kind of evolved from there. So.
Yeah, it's a cool story. I think it's actually a familiar tale for a lot of people, especially the timing. But the interesting part is you coming in from the outside where, maybe you're not, I grew up in California and it just never dawned on me there was restriction or that we had to worry about things. It was always like, well, there's safety issues and then this is how we transport things. But I didn't have any compare and contrast, and I certainly didn't know. So coming in to California from the outside and being a little bit apprehensive or even anxious about, and we were just having this conversation offline about some of the things and the insuredness we have as California gun owners, now going, I'm not sure, like, does this count for this? But if there's this little thing over here, there's a loophole for that. It's rough.
There's so many nuances and things and loopholes and things that you need to be more cognizant of than you do anywhere else in the country, really. And so it was like, do I want to take the time and effort to navigate all that stuff? I just kind of want to go out and shoot with my friends. It's kind of how I got into airsoft. But then realizing the applicability of actually learning how to shoot a real firearm is a lot different. And so I knew I needed to kind of continue to learn and evolve and better my training and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you, man. And again, that's why there's been so much interaction between you and I is how much training you do, and we have done together because we wind up in the same places at the same time, always looking for, hey, who is providing a really good product, a really good value, and, what can we take away? And then there's even been times where we've been, you're in a situation then to be able to help one another outside of that class instruction, whether that's through a chat, about some experience that you had or a piece of equipment or gear that you're using or you purchased or you've tried, whether you like it or you don't. And then even shooting out on the range and not being involved, with the course, having those fundamentals under your belt and some of that basic knowledge. So, and again, the community part has been great. There's been a few cigars along the way, maybe a beer or two. Talk about the day job real quick.
I'm a registered nurse. I work at one of the local hospitals. I've been a nurse for 10 years. I do post-surgical recovery currently. Wake people up after surgery. I did cardiac intensive care for a while. Wake people up after open heart surgery. So pretty much, I joke around. I say I'm a drug dealer, but I mean, I'm making sure people's pain is taken care of after surgery.
Well, I know that one well, actually. So my mom did that for the last about 10 years of her career. So I've heard lots about it, and I understand what you mean about being the drug dealer. You go to a little machine, you punch in the code, you get the stuff, you administer the stuff, you make sure everybody gets the right stuff. And then you get a whole new batch of people coming in. It's just a machine. Right?
Yeah. But it's good. I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Like I said, people come out in some of their worst days of their lives, and I kind of get to be a little part and kind of help them get through some of their tough times and feel better after that. So do the best I can.
I love that. Just going back to kind of how you handle yourself with regard to, giving feedback on things. Let's jump into the Atlanta range day experience. This had been presented to me the first year it happened, like I heard about it. But at that point, I was behind the ball. And whenever you travel or whenever you're going to, I guess travel is part of this, but whenever you decide to do an event, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? As a consumer of that event. I've done it now as a sponsor or as I guess part of the production team, if you will, before. And so I understand it on that perspective, but I guess from the consumer perspective, I'm going to shoot, there's a lot of things I have to take into consideration. I think first and foremost, the thing that comes to mind for people is finance. if I look at it, I think there's some other things. I think there's convenience, like what's the location, logistically. Secondly, it would be what's actually being offered. And I think it's interesting. I think some people, they don't care. They're just like, I just want to go and do something because I don't have a lot of access. And I don't want to say they don't care, but they know there's going to be something there that they can benefit by.
Right.
Some people look at it and be very specific about, no, if this instructor's not going to be there, I might not go. I think it's a different type of consumer. And then the last thing is finance, so convenience, like obviously the type of training that's happening, and then how much is this going to cost me? And I think that's those are the challenges that the event promoters, face. Like,
Yes.
okay, how do we maximize this and make this situation the best for the people that may or may not want to come? And I think that starts with the promoters or the event producers, if you will, doing a really good job of networking to talk to a lot of different people and have their fingers or some roots in a lot of different areas. And Sean from O'Grady from Exoteric is really the dude, kind of the brainchild behind the whole thing. And he's been working really hard on this for several years. This would be, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the second year. I got introduced to Sean at SHOT Show of 2023 and was invited out at that point. He said, you should really come. And at the same time, Kyle, who was going to be an instructor out there, or I think there were some talks happening. I don't know if it was officially at that point, was pushing, just going, dude, are you going to go out to Atlanta Range Day? And so these things popped into my head, right? Okay, well, first off, that's a long way away.
Yes.
It's a long way to go. If I make that kind of a commitment, those other two things make a huge difference. It's not like it's happening in my backyard, and I can drive out there get up in my own bed, drive out there and come back. So it's a long way to go. So that means airplanes, rental cars, hotels, Airbnbs, whatever else, putting firearms in airplanes, which is never fun. People have heard my stories.
Yeah.
About trying to manage that stuff.
This was my first time traveling with a rifle. I've traveled with handguns before on flights, but this was first time dealing with rifle travel. So it was, it's just different. It's a lot of more things that you just have to look into as opposed to driving down somewhere, even if it's 4 or 6 hours away. Once you get on the airplane, it's a lot more involved, I guess.
For sure. And so again, people are weighing this. And then obviously, who's going to be there?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I started, and at the time I was being told who was going to be there, it wasn't totally official yet, but there were some names on that list. Don Edwards was going to be there from Green Line Tactical. Sam Houston was, I think, kind of a maybe. Sean was in the same booth with Sam. And so we were talking, and I think it was just a matter of like, hey, am I teaching another course that weekend or not? And we're still trying to figure that out. Long story short is there were going to be some people there that I definitely wanted to learn from. This would be a good opportunity for me to get in front of them all in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing obviously is okay, how much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
And so with weighing that out, knowing that there were maybe some other folks from the Bay Area going, like, okay, well, maybe we can reduce some costs with rental cars and Airbnbs and things like that if we can all stay together, which we were able to do, which is always helpful. And I'm only putting this out and like people are going, okay, dude, get to the point. What was happening? My point is there are folks out there that are really trying to do a good job at putting together these events, and they recognize the challenges that people face in doing this. And they're looking at a price tag. Often that's the most discouraging thing. They look at a price tag and go, man, that's just way too much money for a weekend of training. I've got to get ammo. I've got to get all this other stuff. And I look at it a little bit differently, like, okay, well, what is the true value that you're getting out of this if you take responsibility and really start to plan and think about going to one of these events, knowing that no event is ever going to be perfect, and it's going to cost you money. It's not free.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wonder how your thought process was.
I think one of the great things about these events is that it is a kind of a community thing. So certain classes like you kind of go to by yourself, but these events are really, I think, most enjoyed when you go with a group of guys that are friends that you can kind of split some of those costs with. Like you said, some people do hotels. We when we go to these events, we try to do an Airbnb, kind of split costs that way. You've mentioned on your show before how like kind of that camaraderie and stuff you build, kind of talking to people after classes and things like that is where you kind of pick up a lot of information or tidbits or things that you kind of missed. And I kind of like that community aspect of these events. So I think that, and going with the group, it kind of always helps you to kind of make sure everybody's got everything in order. It's like if you forgot something, like, oh, your buddy might have something to kind of help you out.
Great point.
So you just have kind of a comfortability to go to those places. So like in Atlanta, I didn't hear about it the first year. I kind of heard about it through Kyle, and then you kind of talking about it too. So if I was just to go by myself, it might have been a lot. But to know that I was going with a few other guys, then there's some familiar faces and stuff there, made it a lot more comfortable for me to go and kind of do one of those events so far away and not have to worry about trying to organize all that stuff just by myself. It's like, oh, okay, like flights are kind of covered by here. This guy's got the Airbnb covered. This guy's got the rental car covered. And then it kind of takes some stuff off your plate. And then it kind of all comes together for like a really nice trip, as opposed to just trying to figure out all that stuff like a business trip by yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think there's a few things that came out of that too for me, and that, you know, as people were flying into the airport and having to get picked up and stuff, I actually was getting picked up by folks that were driving in from New York, who had then picked up a guy from Ohio along the way, right? And because there was this network of people to help with, you know, I wasn't having to do, you know, an Uber. We were all sharing a car, but you guys, you know, there's like 4 of you coming in on another flight. It's like, you guys get the car when you get here. I'll meet you on the other end. Well, you know, we'll get it. But that communication, and again, that community is there to be very, very supportive. And I don't think you can pay. I don't think there's a price tag for that, you know, and what you get with that in terms of the friendships and the camaraderie, and then the connections that you can make and the conversations that you get to have. There's a high level of value to this. So, you know, again, people are like, oh, it's in Atlanta. You know, I live in Texas. Well, I can tell you this, the places people came from at this event were impressive to me.
All over. There's a guy from Alaska. So there's Alaska. I know there was Oregon, specifically from the Portland area, which I thought was great. You know, people coming down, trying to get out and experience new things. New York, I mentioned Ohio, Florida. There's actually a vendor from Oregon. We'll get into the vendors in a minute. Who else? There was all the Carolinas. So obviously Georgia, Tennessee. I met some folks from Tennessee. So it was like, well, we had mentioned California Range Weekend, which is, you know, California's a massive state, right? It covers a lot of territory, and there's a draw. And we've had a draw from at CRW, Arizona, Nevada for sure. I know there was a gentleman that came in last year from Germany, which was very interesting. But it's very California centric, whereas this, like Atlanta Range Day, is really like almost like East Coast or Southeast Coast Range Day. Yeah. Because of the draw that it has for all of those different areas. I mean, people were driving in 8, 9, 10 hours to get to the event, or further, you know, in terms of flights and stuff. Like, we were coming out from California. I didn't even mention California, so there's a bunch of us that are coming from here, which I thought was interesting, that people are that, I guess, encouraged to get out and do one of these events, that they'll fly from Alaska to Georgia to do it. I think it says a lot about, like you said, the community. That's really what you gain at these events is a lot of people are kind of training on their own, or like you said, doing classes, doing stuff individually, but to try to find a lot of like-minded people. These are great events to go to meet people that are doing a lot of the stuff that you're doing, and then try to form those bonds, those people that you can talk to, that you can take different classes and bounce ideas off of, and plan different trips to go to different events or classes and things like that. That's really one of the huge, huge benefits that these events offer.
So let's talk about like the way the event was structured and kind of some of the takeaways that we had. So there were, I don't know the number, I know all the names, but I think there were about 6 instructors. So if I'm going to drop names right now, stop me or you add in, fill in the gaps. So we had Don Edwards from Green Line Tactical. Mm-hmm. We also had Raul Martinez from Rogue Methods, who was doing his close contact gunfighter. Sorry, going back. Don was coaching a move and shoot with carbines, a course which I took. Sam was doing like unconventional shooting positions.
Like a positional shooting class.
And I want to come back to that because people are like, dude, what the heck is that? Well, we'll talk about it. While I didn't take it, I did talk to several people that did. Raul again was covering his close contact gunfighter, which is a combatives.
You've taken that class.
I've taken that session before, that course with him before. We had Kyle Manzano, who was teaching like performance What was it?
His handgun efficiency class.
Handgun efficiency with Kyle. And then we had Matt Adams from Eagle Tactics, who was teaching an RDS pistol,
Yes.
which I took.
I did as well.
And then we had the Exoteric group, Sean and his group of guys, and I forget what the title of that class was.
Performance Carbine, and I took his class on Saturday.
Okay, so those were the 6 courses that were going on. Now, again, like there's these titles of classes, but you never really know what you're going to get until you see the, kind of the what do they call it? Like syllabus almost.
Yes.
And one of the things I really did appreciate about the way Sean and the core group of instructors there handle themselves is the communication was, I found, to be very good.
Thorough.
Sean was regularly emailing all the participants. He was updating the Instagram regularly. And very early, we had what the curriculum was going to be per class, like what your needs were going to be, exactly what was going to be taught. So when choosing classes, this made this very easy for me. And the other way he organized this was you were going to get a pistol class, a pistol course, and you were going to get a rifle course, unless of course you were in the close contact gunfighter, which you're utilizing pistols, but you were going to get some of both.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason that's important, I think, is because sometimes when you go to these events, that isn't the case. You may want to do all carbine, or you may want to do all pistol. I always when I like to go is, if I'm going to go and put some time in, especially, in long courses over 2 days, I prefer to get a little bit of both to practice my skills.
I like to mix it up a little bit too.
So they were very, very careful to make sure they mixed and matched these courses. Now, you were going to get 2. You're guaranteed 2.
Right.
One day was pistol, one day was carbine, and among those six instructors. So you weren't going to take 6 different classes from 6 different people. You picked 2. You're very good about getting people into the courses that they wanted. And the class sizes were somewhere in the neighborhood of like 12 to 15, I think, per class. And in those classes, they did have assistant instructors, AIs in there.
Yes.
So in some cases, more than one. So they were getting the student to shooter ratio was very, very good.
It was low, yeah.
And then on top of that, so it was over 2 days. It was a Saturday, Sunday. However, people were arriving and vendors were arriving in on Friday. Right?
They had like an industry day on Friday.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
At least for me personally, I got there a little bit later. We got in on Thursday, and then on Friday we kind of got started a little late, so we didn't get to the range till around 2:00. But my understanding was that if you were in the industry or law enforcement or military in the area, even if you didn't have a ticket, you could come out and kind of check out the vendors and talk to people on a one-on-one basis with the vendors, so that they were very open and willing to talk to everybody there that day. So if you had questions about specific products or something like that, you could go and kind of talk to them one-on-one, and they had a lot of time to be able to kind of chat with you. It wasn't as rushed as kind of like on during your class days where you're trying to figure out, make sure you have all your equipment ready. This was kind of laid back and relaxed, and they had some demo guns that you could shoot and things like that. And then the actual early registration for everybody was Friday evening. We came through, kind of got a bunch of little swag, which they had really nice stuff. There was a taco truck in the evening to kind of give you some food if you had been there all day. But overall, there was no classes, but it gave you a good opportunity to kind of meet some of the instructors that were there, chat with them one-on-one, see some of the different vendor offerings, kind of get first dibs on that if you wanted to pick up some of the stuff that they had. And then just kind of get comfortable with like parking, the range, just so you're not worried that at 7:30 the next morning, you're trying to figure all this out and make sure that you're making it there on time, get to your class and all that stuff.
I think this is a good policy for anybody having some type of a range day, particularly for the vendors to get there early, set up, get the lay of the land, and kind of figure out how they can best operate in those environments, because these events don't happen without the vendors.
Yeah.
That was a solid group of vendors at this event. I mean, ones that come to mind right off the top of my head, I know I'm going to leave maybe 1 or 2 out, and I apologize, guys, for this, but Vortex was a primary sponsor. Excuse me. They had a huge booth.
It was amazing.
All their optics, pistol and rifle optics.
Handgun too. Yeah, everything. Like if you wanted to see any of their lines of magnified stuff, it was really neat. As somebody getting into kind of long range or LPVOs, like if you have questions about some of their higher end optics, they were willing to help you out and pretty much tell you all the features, everything about them, and then let you try it out. And
yeah,
stuff.
you
it
can
was
shoot
really
them.
cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
This is not an indoor event. This is outdoors. They had stuff set up on tripods. Live range. They had a little some drills you could shoot with their stuff. There were 3 reps from there. No, I know there were 3 reps from the Vortex, from Team Vortex.
Vortex Edge.
Edge is what the team is called. Yep, that were super helpful, and they were actually taking classes too, which was great. I got to stand side by side those guys in the RDS pistol course.
I thought that was a cool opportunity for the vendors that Atlanta Range Day offered. That I don't know if other range days do that, but to let the vendors kind of take some of those classes and get some benefit for them as well was pretty neat.
It was awesome. Yeah. And they're great shooters.
Those guys
they're comp shooters.
They're
so
really good.
Like I was literally standing next to the line next to them. We can get into that, my interactions and who was there, but it was awesome because I was learning things from them and they were asking questions that maybe somebody else might not ask, or it was really great to have them there. So again, the Edge guys, Vortex Edge guys were there. Radian from Oregon, from Redmond, Oregon was there. They were demoing rifles as well as some of their new stuff, the Ramjet compensators.
Their Guardian.
The new Guardian, which is a pretty cool product, was there. You got to get hands-on. You got to shoot stuff. I believe they had some full auto stuff. You could, we were ripping off down there in that booth. Everybody likes the full auto stuff. So you got the fun switches. Were there. We also had Cobalt Kinetics was there with as a sponsor and their rifles. I know Don has the Fast Eddie rifle, which is a collab with them, and so they were down there. CGS was there. Chris Blau from 1911 Syndicate and also CGS was there. They were going through some. He had some suppressors out there. For those people that can have those things.
That was kind of cool to see what other people get to shoot and like what that technology is all about. That was kind of neat to learn how they do like 3D printing with their cans on how other people do theirs and stuff like that. So that was kind of neat.
Educational.
We don't, like in California, it doesn't really apply for us, but it's kind of cool to see what everybody else gets to play with.
Yeah, so it's not just about shooting. It's also about learning and being kind of, immersed in it. Again, not leaving anybody out. Rocket City Stippling was there. This dude's doing a great job out there with the stipple jobs and some of the innovative things he's been doing lately. So you got to handle stuff. You got to shoot stuff. You had plenty of stuff there for you to play with and kind of get your hands on. Blue Alpha was there. They make soft goods. You might be familiar with them. They were up there as well.
I think Flatline Fiber Co.
I saw my boy Chad from Flatline Fiber Co. was there. They had some soft goods there as well. There were some other suppliers I may be leaving out. Who am I missing?
Had some local people that did like some stipple work and then some like knife cutting or knife edging, things like that. Mm-hmm. It was just a bunch of different stuff all in the area. Some small like vendors that were local.
I forget. I'll try to put it in the notes of this. There was like a Fieldcraft type outfitter who had all kinds of stuff from like you mentioned, blades to MedTech stuff to all kinds of different things. The bottom line was there were quite a few vendors there. Some of the bigger names that we've already mentioned that you'll probably know about, and there were a lot of other small folks, which I think is a great opportunity for maybe smaller companies that don't have the ad spend budgets and just marketing budgets in general to get themselves out there, and play in the world of big business marketing, especially in those local areas. So if you're an event promoter, you should be propping these people up. And if you're a local person who has some type of an online business at all, I would highly encourage you to, whatever the spend is, whatever the minimum is to get in and get a booth there to be talking about your business. This is an awesome place to get a captive audience.
It's like targeted too. Like if you're in that space, like these are the people that you're trying to sell to, like specifically. So it's really the audience you're trying to hit.
Yeah, and I mean you have an opportunity here. So again, I thought the ARD group did a really good job of bringing sponsors together. And what came along with that, I got to be honest, the raffle prizes and contest prizes that were available to, again, think about six ranges, about maybe 12 to 15 people per range. That's less than 100 people.
I think they had like in the 80 range.
Yeah, it's about 80 participants, right? Plus there were some people that were there, again, through the vendors and things like that. Yeah. So we're just talking shooters that came to shoot at the event. Being able to compete for some pretty outstanding prizes. There were like 3 or 4 firearms that were given away.
Radian Builder Kit.
Yes. On top of that, I wasn't even thinking that one. Yeah.
The grand prize raffle was a fully kitted out rifle.
Right.
I ended up winning a kitted out Glock. So it was really cool. Like they had some really, really cool prizes, and a lot of them too. It wasn't just like the top 3 ones. Like they had a bunch of different competitions that we did on what Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday. But then also there was a lot of stuff given, swag and stuff that was given to the instructors to run, contests on their little drills and whatever. Yeah. I dare say there was too much for them. Like they're like, I could spend all day running.
They had to make up competitions.
They had to make stuff up along.
Yeah, to give out all the free stuff. It was cool.
It was very cool as a participant. Everybody, if you didn't walk away with something, I think that's on you.
Yeah.
There was that much stuff there, and what I mean is like not just a sticker. There was all kinds
really
of
nice stuff.
Gear, hats, guns, gun parts, all kinds of stuff. So, and I think that's important. Again, if you walked away with like a $300 value for a new stipple job on your Glock, and you paid whatever you paid to get to the event, that's a solid return.
It's a solid return on investment.
Yeah,
right? Not including all the classes and all the information you're getting actual stuff too, which is pretty cool.
I think it's a solid come up, right? I mean, you did okay there. You made out all right. I thought the range number one, and again, it's in Covington. The name of this range is this will come to me. Try to tag this in the post as well, or in the notes as well. It was a very nice range. It was very well kept. It was nice and quiet. Here's the thing: we were talking about this before. We're talking Georgia, right? Atlanta, Georgia area in what's arguably the summer. The summer has arrived, right?
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I was a little worried because I had been in Georgia just previous to that, about 2 weeks before, and that shit was hot and it was humid, and I was worried.
I had the same worries and concerns that you did going in because I've been to Florida. I've been to the South a little bit during the summer, and California, we don't experience the humidity like they do in the South, and it makes that 80 to 90 degrees just almost unbearable. It's just everything sticking to you. You're just sweating all over the place. You just walk outside and you're wet.
Again, like you're not originally from California, but like I'm a California dude, and so I can acclimate, but it takes me a while, and a couple days isn't a while. So I was a little worried about this, but we had gorgeous weather, and
it was beautiful.
Going back to the range, it's very well shaded, covered bays at all the bays, so you had shelter from the sun, plenty of restrooms, plenty of access to stuff out there. And it wasn't a 2-hour drive in to a range sort of out in the middle of nowhere, which again, when you're looking at your time spent, investment, where you may be staying or having to drive in from, again, it's 45 minutes.
Everything was 45 minutes.
45 minutes. So, which is pretty reasonable when you think about driving to a range. So again, that was an upside to this. I mean, if you're putting me out in the middle of the desert, all day long for 2 days, this matters.
While the bays were exposed while you were on the line, like every bay had a pop-up tent that you could kind of do your reloads, get water, all that stuff. They provided water, like coolers at each station, so you could always have access to stuff, and trying to look out for everybody. They had a ton of free, like Hoist, I think was the sponsor for. They had like electrolyte.
That's another thing to think about. This, I mean, the entire weekend the food was catered, and it was good food.
It was,
which is hard to do, to try to make everybody happy. I mean, one day for lunch was barbecue, was outstanding. The other day I think was similar. I can't remember. I think
Chipotle burrito bowls.
Yeah, they were bringing it exactly. And there's drinks and stuff like that. So again, if you're going out to one of these things and thinking about, or you're trying to put one of these things together, I thought that was a huge plus.
Yeah. It's one less thing for like us to worry about, like, oh, did we pack food or what are we bringing? I mean, coming from out of town, it is a lot. I mean, a lot of people were local, but a lot of people for these events are traveling from far. So we're not familiar with the area, and trying to have kind of less stuff on our plate to worry about or have to worry about bringing is always nice.
Yeah, huge value. Okay, so that's more or less kind of how the thing was structured. Again, 2 days. Now, I want to talk about the schedule, because the schedule for me was both beneficial and challenging. Specific to how the days were structured during the day. So we started every day about 8 a.m. There was a safety debrief. You get your shit out there, get geared up and be ready to go. There was a safety debrief each day, and you had to be at your bay with your instructor. And the way this thing was structured was we went from about 8 to noon, 4 hours of instruction. So it's a good amount of, it's plenty of time for intensive instruction. And then we had a long break, a long pause in the afternoon before we went back. Was it 2 hours?
4 hours.
Okay. So what the hell was going on for this 4-hour pause? And then we would come back in the afternoon and then go the next 4 hours of instruction. So you were getting 8 hours of instruction, but it was broken in the middle with this 4-hour pause. What was happening with the pause? So the
Saturday it was lunch for an hour, and then you had the competitions for 3 hours. And so that was when we kind of got to go to the different bays and shoot the competitions that each instructor was kind of putting on for that day.
So instructors were part of these competitions, and so were vendors.
Yeah.
So you had an opportunity as a participant to, if you wanted to sit around and do nothing, you could have done that. Yeah. But you had an opportunity to go around, and this is effectively what was happening. One, you could shoot the competitions or the drills or whatever to win the swag and win the prizes. Again, they were substantial. This was not like you're getting a sticker or a patch. There's a lot of things that were being handed out here that were of very high value, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars in some cases. It also gave the opportunity for the vendors to really get time with each participant. So
that's how it was. It was the first day. Saturday was the vendors. They did 3 hours to go kind of check out all the vendors and see all their stuff. And then Sunday was the competitions for that time. But there was that same 4-hour break each day.
Right. So if and what you did was you kind of went back to your bay with your homeroom instructor for the day.
You stayed with your class for the day.
And you just rotated through. So there wasn't like an overcrowding at one place, or you didn't miss anything. That meant also every vendor got hit. So if I'm a vendor and you're concerned about, well, wait, where's my space? Am I stuck out here on the end? And nobody's ever going to walk by me. What's the traffic look like? You had a captive audience.
Yeah.
And so again, you were sort of being led around on a field trip for that little bit of time, and it allowed you the extra time you wanted to spend, you needed to spend or wanted to spend, and then you could always go back and get things handled. So I thought for vendors and for participants, it was good. I will tell you, it just made for a very long day. And if you're not prepared for this, you're out on the range for, basically like 14 hours.
Yes, the days were long.
It is a very long day, and then we were going to come back the next day and do it all over again. So it was long. Now knowing what it's like, I would be a little, I think, more mentally and physically prepared next time to go. But by the end of that last hour, those last hours on those days of instruction, I could see people dwindling, lack of food.
Just being in kind of the heat and the humidity and stuff. While it was nice, it's still pretty warm out there. So it's just kind of wearing on people, especially kind of being in full kit and carrying your stuff around a lot for a majority of the day.
Yeah, so it's something to be prepared for when you go to these events, period. But I did think the way Sean and his crew put those days together, he kept us all busy, right? And again, the food was on time, the drinks were on time, we started and finished on time.
Very punctual.
It was very punctual, which I
appreciate.
I really appreciate it.
I'm a very punctual person, and when some of these events, like things kick off real late or like they get behind, and so like if you're going to make the investment to come out here, it's nice to have somebody that's running a schedule that they're going to stick to.
There's a lot to manage.
There's a ton.
There's a lot to manage. And so, if I kind of look back on it, I was uber impressed with how organized this event was at every level. There was plenty of actually support staff, and these things never go off without support staff who are running around making sure everything from coolers were full to making sure people got to the places that they need to, the rosters. If somebody was missing, hey, let's track them down. Let's figure out what's up. And getting people moved around in there. And so I think instructors probably appreciated that, as well as, the rest of us. I know, for example, I know Don was like, these guys are I've never been to an event where we've had so much service, as an instructor. But that said, I think that's something to be said for the people that are putting these events on, and for the people that are there to do a thing like instruct. I don't want to have to be managing your unorganized bullshit as a promoter,
right?
Because it says, well, this is what we're doing, and we're not, and now you've left me to handle things. I didn't get any of that at all.
Same with the instructors too. I mean, I know Kyle well. I kind of help him out and stuff like that. All the stuff like setting up his range is kind of taken care of. It kind of takes a lot off their plate. They don't have to go track down and figure out where their students are, make sure they're getting to the bays. They have a lot of stuff they got to set up and get ready for, because they're running a full class, but in kind of a foreign range environment, and they're trying to all figure out where stuff is. I think Sean and the Exoteric group, they did a great job kind of having everything organized and ready for all these instructors kind of coming on and getting ready to put on their classes.
Yeah, I think Sean probably understands that as an instructor more than anything, because Look, I mean, like managing a schedule for a class when you don't have anything else to worry about except for you, your class, and your people is one thing. But now you start worrying about, well, other people's schedules are dependent on me getting in and out of here on time and so forth. I think that's a huge value add for the instructor going. So, whether participants really recognize any of that or not, I don't think I recognize it. Yeah. They might not, but if they go to another event where it's not run as smoothly,
that's when you really see.
You're going to know.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So again, for a lot of people coming in, this was their first event because I was talking to them about this. I really didn't know what to expect. They were coming in like on their own. They weren't coming in with buddies or whatever. And I was trying to get their, kind of some feedback, from them or whatnot. And, people weren't talking about that. No, they were talking about the classes that they were taking. That's good.
That's right. Exactly. Because those are all the things that you need to run smoothly that people would be talking about if they're not executed well.
So let's get into some of the coursework, that we were doing out there. That's sort of how the event was set up in terms of the coursework. Again, we mentioned there's a pistol and carbine day that you'd be doing as a participant. Maybe we kick it off by just talking about kind of our compare and contrast with Matt Adams, Eagle Tactics, and the RDS course. How many RDS courses have you taken before?
This would be my third actual specific red dot course.
So it's at least 3 for me at this point. By the time I'm jumping in this class, it could be more. At this point, like specific RDS course, I think it was actually number 4 or 5. If I'm being honest, or if I'm being accurate, not honest, but accurate. And so, you never know what you're going to get when you get into these things. But what we're talking about a pistol with a red dot on it, right? And so, how many times can this stuff be said differently? And why did you take it if you've already been to 3 would be my question.
Yeah. So for me, I just started really shooting a lot within the last 2 to 3 years. And so I'm at a point where I'm trying to kind of gain as much knowledge as I can and kind of get a lot of different instruction and kind of, when I go to classes, I think I have a good foundation, but I'm really looking for kind of those nuggets or those little bits of things that kind of just click and then kind of help to elevate my shooting. So I've taken Kyle Manzano Tactical's red dot class. I took MSP Modern Samurai Project, his red dot class. And so Eagle Tactics and Matt, his approach is kind of, he's taken similar instruction. So he said that he's also kind of taken some of his thought process or procedures from Modern Samurai Project. So I thought it was really interesting to kind of see that tree, I guess, kind of what differences and what similarities there were. And so for me, I was just trying to kind of pick up some different things. I find sometimes that in dry fire, I won't pick up the dot all the time. So just trying to make sure, kind of find some nuances with that. I'm trying to also make sure that I'm more target focused and not dot focused, and trying to occlude my optic and learn stuff like that. So this was another opportunity to kind of pick up some stuff red dot specific that I could work on, and then also work on things like occluded dot in those classes and try to make sure that I'm doing the things that I think that I'm doing in a class environment and not kind of just kind of the range. Because a lot of times, at least for us in California, it's hard to do some of the more advanced stuff at your local range. So classes are really the big opportunities that I have to kind of push some of those boundaries with speed and tracking the dot and recoil and stuff like that with longer strings, because you can't, one every 3 seconds, sure, the dot seems pretty stable, but when you're shooting bill drills, all of a sudden it's a lot of those things break down, but we can't do that at our local range. So it's just try to get that extra instruction and then a lot of reps in focusing on that.
That's why I wanted to bring you in, because of the way you just explained that, which I couldn't do it any better. The things that get picked up when you're taking these classes from these guys at the level that you're at, with as much practice as you have, you're looking for that 0.5% increase in performance, or that 0.5% or that 1% increase in ability to, or just understanding even of, again, how do you find that target a little faster? How do you transition a little faster? And so the shooting is still the shooting, but you mentioned the dot occlusion. People go, oh, you can dry fire. Yeah, but okay, dry fire. Yes, you can dry fire and work a lot of this stuff, but still where the rubber meets the road is when you're out on the range and you're having to manage all the other things. Yeah. And if you don't actually do that, then in theory, you could be improving your skill, but you never really see how it comes together. And then, okay, so I'm doing this really well, but there's nothing hitting paper, right, or steel, all right, in my dry fire. So when I go out there, the next steps are in terms of improving. It's I'm not just hitting steel, right? I'm putting it in. I'm trying to do this and put it in a much smaller target.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was one of the cool things I took away from Matt was there was a lot of accountability in this particular course to the target. We were doing things like breaking, C zones down in half, A zones down in half. We were shooting different size dots at pasties, if you will, from different distances in a way that I hadn't done in an RDS class before. But there was some other stuff that I really picked up, and that was the way he was delivering the information. And there's a couple of things here. So Matt's a dude. He's from Alabama, right? And his delivery is a little bit different. And I've talked to other instructors on the show before about how the deliveries, kind of as you get different geographics of the country change. And I really liked his approach. And the only thing I can say about it is there were some diagrams that he was drawing and things that he was saying, kind of relationships that he was paralleling, that those were the clicks, those were the nuggets for me as we walked away, and they were really starting to come together for me throughout the day. Now, here's the other part I will say about this is Matt attracted some other very, very good shooters to this particular course. Mm-hmm. I stood next to the line with Gil from Fortitude Training, who actually, as a result of this event, I think now Gil and Matt are actually collabed, and they're going to be doing some courses together. They're actually coming here to California.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to teach together. They're going to be down at Burro Canyon next year. I believe it's April. Don't quote me on the dates, okay. but look out for those guys coming to California, which was awesome. Told you about the Vortex Edge guys who were standing to the left of me while Gil was to the right of me. There were some federal agents in that course and some other local law enforcement, and Matt's also a law enforcement officer. And these were high-level shooters, high-level shooters. And so I was able to, in terms of like the question and answer periods and the check-ins and some of the dialogue that he was having and the instruction that he was giving, which, by the way, was very hands-on as well. He was getting around and touching each of us as students physically, like, hey, let me,
hands-on to show you grip.
A lot of hands-on. Yeah. More hands-on than any other RDS class that I'd been in, which I think, and I picked up from a couple of instructors, Mark Ackenbach being one of those guys who's also very hands-on as well, makes a huge difference. Having that tactile approach. I relate that heavily to fitness. There's a whole sense there that you have, and to not utilize it as an instructor could really inhibit your students' growth.
Especially when you talk about grip. I mean, it's one thing to see it, and it's a whole nother thing to feel it. Like when he did that handshake thing and showed you what his grip pressure was and how his other hand rolls in. Mm-hmm. I think that for somebody that doesn't understand really kind of like that crushing, wrenching grip, I think it really shows you exactly what he's trying to talk about. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is what I need to do in order to get that gun to stabilize. And those are kind of the things that you can't get off a YouTube video or watching an Instagram live or reel or something like that.
Right.
Just to have him show you, and you can actually feel the pressures where you're going to apply and how that will, and then actually be able to immediately after, and then be able to shoot a drill. Be like, oh, if I grip it like this, then I have much better control to be able to see the results. I think is awesome.
Yeah, again, and if you're looking for those small percentage increases, those are the ones that make the biggest difference. Is fundamentals taken to the next level, if you will. If that's, I don't know if that's the right way of saying things. I think basically by the end of the day, I watched my shooting improved dramatically. And I hadn't been behind the pistol very much at all for that year, out of the holster, mm-hmm. outside the waistband, off my hip, hardly at all for the year. And so I was kind of knocking the rust off, but also correcting maybe some bad habits that I had at the same time, and just improving. So again, in order to experience all that stuff, you have to go take a class from Matt in Eagle Tax. But I thought he did a really great job. And that's kind of the thing that he's chosen, I think, is one of the things he really wants to focus on. And for a couple of when I say that thing, RDS or pistols with the red dots. And a lot of it has to do with his involvement in law enforcement, right, and bringing the red dots into the law enforcement community, because it's a thing where they still don't have those, and when they are approved, you have to bring people into it. There's sometimes, for some of the old salty dudes, it's a little bit of, we'll just do it the way we've always done it. And I think for some of the younger guys, it's an unsureness of, maybe should I be doing this? I don't want to piss off the old salty dudes, or, I'm just unfamiliar and I'm intimidated by it or whatever else. And he's really knocking all the rough edges off of that, I think, in the delivery of his product.
Yeah, I would say, with that being his focus, for me, like I said, I just started shooting recently. I did learn iron sights, but I've been shooting a dot pretty much exclusively for the last 2 years. And to see like how much more beneficial that is versus shooting iron sights, as far as how quickly you can get on target, and just has a lot more applicability. Like it's surprising that it's such a challenge for these things to get implemented in police departments, for people that are supposed to be protecting us as civilians. We want to give them the best technology has to offer. So I think it's awesome. And I think if he's the one giving you instruction, he's for sure going to make awesome shooters out of those guys, because he does a great job in his delivery.
Yeah, it's civilian, law enforcement, whatever. Matt, Eagle Tactics, check him out. Brings a lot to the table. Next, we can move on to Kyle Manzano. You guys have heard us talk about him on the show before. He's been on the show before. I did not take that session, but we've taken these courses.
Just not there.
Yeah, Kyle is for anybody that watches Kyle on YouTube or sees him on Instagram, you're going to get that Kyle's a very proficient shooter. And very much behind the performance end of things, and always improving performance. But this particular class was not geared for quote unquote performance or how to get faster. He's giving you the things from an efficiency perspective that would lead to
I think that's
faster.
Kyle's really thought process. He can tell you maybe different, but I think his idea of performance is being as efficient as he possibly can in his movement. And I think that inherently does make you faster. And so by kind of making sure you're streamlining all of the processes that you're doing is really going to shave those seconds off. But it's like, what is all that extra movement that you're doing? And only is a lot of times is when you see other people doing less that you realize like, oh, I'm doing a lot more. I think Kyle in his classes has shown me a lot of different stuff as far as ways to try to improve that. And so it's just that efficiency course, I think, is really good at, if you're not an entry level shooter, he does have those classes, but this is really good if you've taken a few classes and you're really trying to refine your movements, really shave off those half and quarter seconds. That he's really helpful in that.
Yeah, I think this is definitely an intermediate course. And what was interesting, and this is what I wanted to talk about when we got to Kyle, was, again, didn't take his exact course and this exact course, and how he delivered it while I've taken other ones, I don't know, because again, it was a modified, schedule, whatever. Yeah. He had to do some different things. Only he and the guys that took that class, or the people that took that class, could talk about it. Here's what I'll say. What was interesting was the dynamic that was happening over at that session. While I was literally in the bay next door with Matt during the day. Yeah. Kyle's a guy who likes to have a lot of fun during his sessions, and there's always a lot of chit chat, and I mean in a productive way. There's always a little challenging, little razzing, trash talking that's going on. And it was interesting to see the folks that went over there that came to ARW to take Kyle's course, who were looking to get faster, right? Looking to be more efficient, looking to shoot more like Kyle. Yeah. And that they were all about being challenged. There was this constant, like, you could really see there was, I don't want to call it tension, I just want to say energy of people really like, oh, let me try that again. I got to try this again.
It's a competitive atmosphere.
That's a good way of looking at it. In a healthy way.
Very.
In a healthy way. And it's not competitive right out of the gate with, well, if you're not this good, then you shouldn't be here. It's more, hey, we're going to show you some things right up front that will give you a really good indication and a really good peek inside of where things will go. And where your deficiencies are now. And so this is how this is going to come up later. And then by the end, we're going to retest it. And I think the thing that I always really enjoy about his sessions are the end. And that is watching, again, all that energy come together at the end. And everybody's been through it all, and nobody's been perfect. Mm-hmm. Everybody has been challenged at some level. And they're all, and there was, God, I can't remember. It's the PWC guy. What's his name? With the lens cleaner.
Oh, Paragon,
yeah. God dang it, if I can't remember his first name right now, I forget. Sorry, brother.
I think it's Corey.
Corey from Paragon, yeah. Yes. And so, sorry, Corey. Corey's an amazing shooter, and he's all about the competition.
Yes.
And even at the end of that day one, I was watching him out there at the end of day one, like getting into it with the group, and he was still being challenged and pushing everybody, and the people were just jumping back into line. There's some hooting and hollering going on, and I think that's a really great aspect to bring not for everybody. But it's certainly worked itself out because I watched it happen the second day as well. I went over there, we'd all ridden out there together. So the Suburban's parked there and we're all tossing our shit in the back or whatever. So I got to hang out and kind of hear the feedback that people were giving because he was taking his sessions long, which I think a lot of it had to do with, let me get another shot at this. Let me try this. And people hitting targets at 25 yards up for speed and double tapping and things like that. Things they weren't able to do or they'd never been able to do before, never imagined themselves doing until after this course. Again, in terms of bringing people together, I think, having, Kyle on the, in Atlanta and bringing them all the way across the country to do that was awesome for those folks because they might not have access to that type of style or that type of vibe.
I mean, he was saying it was really cool to kind of see all those people that kind of came out to take his course. I mean, him being a fairly local California instructor to be able to go all the way across the country and have people traveling to go take his course out there because it was a little bit easier for them to get to than all the way out in California. Right. It was really cool. So, and like you said, everybody kind of has that competitive attitude. And I think these events are really neat because you have a wide range of people that are shooting. But like with you in the Eagle Tactics class, like the people to your right and left were really good.
Really
and that
good.
really pushes you, and at least it really pushes me as a shooter to try to be better and to really try to be on my game that day and try to absorb as much as possible because you can see what is attainable as long as you're kind of putting in the time and effort and getting good instruction and things like that. So I get really encouraged when I go to these events and I get to see kind of where I can get to and the speeds that I can get to if I just kind of keep pushing and trying and working at it.
Yeah, I want to be careful too about this. And like going back to my experience with Matt is that like while I was sitting between these these very experienced guys, there were a lot of people on the line who didn't have nearly the experience that I had or that these other guys had.
Sure.
The pace for them was the right pace, right? We were all moving at our own pace. We're all challenged and encouraged to challenge ourselves at the pace that, was going to be challenging for us. And the amount of growth that I watched happen, right, with those maybe more novice to maybe intermediate shooters in the amount of time that we spent together was very encouraging. It was impressive.
It's awesome.
It was impressive. And the discovery, because while we're trying to improve, 1% here, 2% there, 0.5% here.
You're making huge leaps.
These guys are, 20%, 50% better, 100% better in some cases, and learning things, like that's, one guy had a red dot sheer straight off his slide. Red dot, we'd never even heard of it before. I don't even know where this thing came from. We weren't, 20 minutes into day one and the thing sheared right off. It's like, that's why you don't buy cheap optics, and things like that. But at the same time, it was like somebody was there, let's get that thing off of there. Right. They were able to get it off, or somebody else to slide onto his gun with a new optic, and he was able to
finish the class,
finish the session. So the point of this is like you're learning so much, you're seeing this growth happen. And again, going back to just Kyle real quick before we wrap him up, is just watching the people be encouraged about their growth, and then talking about it and the feedback about how they had taken so much away to be able to go back and work on their own. I thought that was really cool. I mean, that's what you hope to get out of any session. But again, to your point, like they had this opportunity with this guy they may never get again. I think Kyle will probably be back at ARD next year, but they may never get again, and how much they were able to take away for the investment of time, money, and the commitment that they made to be there. I think they felt pretty good about it.
Because these are like full classes. These are essentially what these instructors would do for their one-day courses.
Right.
And so it wasn't some of these events you go to, it's like an abbreviated class. You get 2 hours with this instructor and they're trying to cram a lot of stuff into a small period of time. Like these were full courses that they give. And like you said, the range of talent's not the right word, but of experience is wide. But I think that's where like the hands-on instruction really benefits, because I can get something out of this course and they can get something out of the same course. And we are both feeling pushed, but at the same time, nobody's overwhelmed. And that's what I really think good instructors and good coaches are able to do, is to be able to get everybody kind of improving and help them at wherever their state is.
Yeah. Again, you're able to do some things in those environments and like at these events that you wouldn't typically be able to do at your own range.
Right.
And these, I thought Sean and the instructors did a really good job of bringing those kinds of things to the table. So it is unique in that sense for a lot of us, or for a lot of the folks that are out there. Moving on, just getting into this would have been day 2 for me. What was day 1 for you?
Carbine with
carbine. So let's move on.
Rifle. You did handgun on day 1 and rifle day 2, and I was kind of in the inverse.
Yeah. So let's talk about your day 1. So that was my day 1 with Matt. You took him day 2. That was the compare and contrast there. So let's talk about the
Yeah, so my day 1, my Saturday, I started in the performance carbine class with Sean O'Grady, Exoteric Group. So he was the guy kind of putting on the event. So he had a ton on his plate, even going in, just trying to get everything organized and situated and stuff like that. So I took his rifle course, and I thought it was really good. I thought I gained a lot of different information. He had a lot of nuanced stuff that we kind of talked about with like sling management and kind of stuff that I hadn't really thought of, like how I mount my sling in the front and how I utilize it to try to stabilize the front end of the rifle. So, and that's where I think going to a lot of different instructors, like I said, I'm trying to get some of these little nuances or nuggets that not these other instructors don't know, but that they just don't teach, or it doesn't come up in the course. And so I thought that was kind of neat in how he application of that. And then later on in the afternoon, we did some like positional shooting stuff. We did a lot of the basic stuff too, kind of ready positions and reloads and things like that, all the stuff that you kind of cover in a normal carbine or rifle course. But then the afternoon doing some different competitions. Like you said, there was a lot of different competitions at the event, and then doing some different positional shooting off barricades and unconventional kind of shooting stuff that we don't normally do is kind of, like I said, some of the nuances that you get to do in classes like this that you can't do at your local range, kind of shooting off like if you're braced against like a vehicle or stuff like that, or kind of different positions off barricades and things like that is not stuff that I get to do a lot. And so being able to practice that in an environment and get good instruction, be like, oh, maybe try moving your hand here or position it here to kind of hold the buttstock till you get more stability is kind of really nice to have kind of that hands-on instruction to be able to kind of show you where, oh, I think I'm doing it right, but actually you can do it a little bit better.
Yeah, and just having enough hands on deck, excuse me, to make those contacts with people in an environment like that. And here's the other thing. I mean, this is day 1, so you're sort of fresh.
Yeah.
So you can pick this stuff up, and I think it becomes, as the weekend or the days and the weekend draws on, like instructors have to be a little bit more aware of like, okay, there's going to be some breakdown. People's heads are full, their plates are full, and all that kind of stuff. So I thought with the AIs and actually the breaks, again, while they were long days, the breaks was helpful because it got us in and out of things. You kind of, again,
you could find some shade for a while, kind of decompress a little bit, drop your belt, kind of take some of the weight off and just kind of relax.
Refuel, rehydrate, recharge the batteries, if you will, and jump back in. A lot on Sean's plate with him and his team, running the event plus instructing the that course. I'm just moving into day 2, and then we can kind of talk about the other instructors. I work with Don Edwards. It was a shoot and move with the carbine. I wanted to take that class because you just don't get to do that as often. Going back to what you were saying, like where I am and what I have access to, unless you're taking a specific course where you may be moving around, and get that opportunity. You're often standing on the line, and it's very one directional. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But my point of that is yes, you're firing down range, but
static.
It's very static. Yeah,
you're just kind of shooting at that one target in front of you. You might be at varying distances, but you're not really any angles, transitions, or movement, or anything that would be applicable other than standing broad to a target and shooting. And
so it's limited.
It's not very applicable.
It's limited, it's limited. So you're always like, my thing is like, I always want to test, like if I can do that really well from a static position, what's it going to look like if I'm forced to move, right? And, there could be an argument like, well, when are you actually going to be shooting or firing your weapon while moving? Well, I think we've seen, there could be some application there. So it's not really, it was more about like, how do you move while maintaining, good control, staying on target, and doing the things that we were being asked to do throughout the day. And there was a lot. So we shot a lot. There was a lot of rounds being going down range, which was good too, because, when you go to these things, you want to shoot. That's, again, we're going out to the live fire range. We can dry fire all day long. We want to test our skills. So
I want to at least get to the round count that you quote in the syllabas. If you say you're going to shoot 400 rounds, make sure you're pretty close to 400 rounds.
That's a good policy.
Don't have a 200 round class and then say bring 400. Because that, like, going back to the traveling part, like that was one thing for us was a challenge, was ammo, was trying to get enough ammo for these classes for our group out there. Because it's with the airlines, it's like 11 pounds. But if you're trying to carry for 2 classes and competitions and stuff, then you're trying to figure out how to get that squared away. But then not only that, so you got it all there. Now you have an extra 400 rounds that you didn't shoot. Now, how am I going to get that back?
Right.
It's like an investment. So I think that would be an important thing. Make sure you get to the round count. If you're going to say it's going to be something, it should be that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Close.
I agree with you 100%. That can be very frustrating, and I've been there before. I've also been on the side where I had ammo shipped. Not all of it arrived. Like I was shorted, and I had to borrow from somebody else, or pay somebody else for their ammo. And that's when you're in these environments, there's often somebody that will do that. But
that's the nice part about the community, is that I feel like there's always somebody that'll help you out.
Well, that actually happened out there. I know some folks, their ammo did not arrive on time, and they had to scramble to get something. I don't think it wasn't a problem. Oh, it was you guys. That's right. Yeah, that's
our
right.
ammo was supposed to be shipped in and came in late, and there's plenty of people that would be able to help us out. And it's like then when ours finally did come in, it all worked out. But I mean, there was plenty of people there. I didn't feel that I was going to be without. It was just really trying to figure out who was going to be able to kind of get this supply there to get through the class. But yeah, it can be, like I said, it's just a lot to coordinate, and kind of having that stuff taken off the plate of the people coming in is always nice.
Yeah. At the same time, if somebody did a lot of work to get stuff there, get their ammo there and everything else, and be prepared for this event, and you're doing half the round count, that can be frustrating. Well, I did not experience that at certainly not at Don's course. I like Don. Don's got a different approach. I really, and when I say different, he's been doing this a very long time. He's an ex-Army dude who spent a lot of time as an instructor and in the industry. He knows a lot of people. He teaches a lot of different types of people, and you can immediately pick that up when you're with Don. Like he's relaxed, and I think in a good way. He's able to draw examples and experiences that are like, and in terms of relating to the people that he's standing in front of. We had a very mixed group, and I would say I was one of probably the poorer shooters in the group that I was in. Less practiced, that's for sure, on moving and shooting. So I was struggling sort of at first. I actually got off to a really rough start that day. I had a personal issue happen that delayed my start with the group. And then I kind of waited to get in because I don't want to try to jump in and be disruptive. And when I say like delayed, I was delayed over an hour, getting going that day. And Don was very, very understanding and very amicable. And I told him, I said, hey man, I'm going to have to sit out for a little bit while I handle this other business over here. I really apologize. He's like, hey man, just jump in when you can. I go, well, I'm not going to do that until I know there will be no more disruption. And it's at a time when, meanwhile, I'm standing by and I'm listening to everything that he's going through. So I was an observer for a good amount of that first part of that day, and I really liked the way he just kind of took people through, and very like almost casually, not from a safety perspective or anything like that, but just from like very casual. Let's see how you do. Let's start with this very simple thing and see how you do. And from there, he ratcheted up and dialed the session in the direction, at the speed or at the tempo that it needed to go for the entire day. So he's very, very in tune with who he's in front of.
Right.
And I really enjoy that about him. So you're not just getting what's in the can. I think if you took a course with Don, my impression was in taking a course with Don, like you're going to get the same material, you're just going to get it maybe in a different way. And that's going to have a lot to do with how you're performing. Take the responsibility as an individual first. And then also how the other people in your group are performing. At no point did I feel like anybody was being held back. That's for sure.
Right.
People were being pushed where they should be pushed. And other people's might be just like, hey, let's just back up a little bit here on this particular fundamental. Let's work that before we move to the next thing. And so in the way he structured his course, in all the things that we did, there was always room for this, where people could excel at the rate that they had the ability to excel at. It wasn't so structured in a way, that's not the right word, but it wasn't rigid.
Right.
And that like this, you have to do this before you move on to the next thing. He could keep the course moving and still have people moving through each section at their own sort of pace, of their own ability level. And that to me it takes a high level of skill and a high level of experience. And I really appreciated that about him. The other thing that I noticed he was really paying attention to was the fatigue that was setting in. This is day 2, long day, especially in the second half of the day. It was hot. This particular bay actually had it was like all the other bays had like this nice breeze blowing through them. However, we were situated against the trees and whatever over there, dude, there was it was still, and it was getting hot. He was doing a really good job. Like, hey, let's take a break, go punch up, get some water, sit down for a minute so that you could keep people fresh so that they could really benefit by the training that we're giving them.
Because if you're exhausted, like you're not taking it in mentally, like you're just trying to get through it physically and
or not fall behind.
Right. Yeah. And then you're really not gaining all that stuff from that class. You're just trying to fight your fatigue.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about shooting on the move, there's a lot happening there. Right. And I was very challenged at many, many points there, just with skill, fundamentals, and this last thing I'll say, this was not anything that was like earth-shattering in terms of information. It was more of a, here's how you improve on the fundamentals and the fundamental skill that you're going to need in order to be proficient at this down the line. Nobody's walking into that being a shitty shooter and coming out being a great shooter on the move.
Right.
You're learning where your deficiencies are and how they show up later when you start piling more things on in terms of complexity, obviously movement being very complex. Mm-hmm. So that was a real eye-opener for me. Now, while I've done courses where I've moved, where I've done some shooting on the move, the volume of what we did and the other thing I will say, and this goes back to what I was saying about Matt, the accountability to not just, we're in a 25-yard bay, hitting steel with an AR-15, with a 12.5-inch AR-15 at 25 yards, any monkey can do this, right? So we were shooting paper targets with very specific, A-zone stuff we were supposed to be hitting, and even smaller at times, which totally changes the dynamic. And that was the thing that I really took away from it was, again, if your fundamentals aren't there, and now you're being actually asked to do something with some level of skill and proficiency or accuracy, how things change and how that changes your mindset. And also, I'm just going to say it, the mental and physical fatigue that sets in when you're really, really doing that. There were times where I was very frustrated. And I think that more had to do with maybe just, I was beat, I was worn out.
And smaller targets and on the move it's going to challenge your fundamentals. And like you said, if you don't have a ton of practice because we don't have a ton of places that we can do it, you're trying to knock off rust. It's been a while. Those are really challenging things to demand of somebody. But I think that's important. I think accountability, especially in today's age where it's like, fast splits are really cool and stuff like that. But if you're not able to hit your target, I don't think it really matters a whole lot. Like I'm just a civilian, but I think accountability for rounds downrange is like of the utmost importance. So it's like, I'm going to take maybe an extra half second, but I'm going to get my hits versus just trying to hope that I'm going to hit my target.
Yeah. The miss faster principle doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, just going back to Don Edwards and Greenline Tactical, highly encourage if you're on the East Coast, you know who Don is. And you've probably seen him around. He and Sam are actually doing a huge night vision event. I believe it's November, December this year. If you haven't heard about it, this is like the premiere.
Is that the symposium?
Yeah, it's a huge event. I think they're going 2.5 or maybe 3 days. They're doing it at an old nuclear missile silo site or something like that.
That stuff. I hosted some other class. It's like helicopter night vision stuff. Yeah. I'm like, man, they
pull out all the stops. They got a lot of connections. The next level stuff.
I don't know if I'm there yet, but that seems pretty cool.
Likewise, but the people that had gone last year, a couple people in that day 2 session were just like, dude, if there's an event, you should come back out to this, to the East Coast for. This thing is like insanity. So he, like, his best salespeople were his previous his marketing team is definitely the previous participants there. So check out Don Edwards and Greenline Tactical. The other instructors can't really speak to exactly or in a lot of detail, but to touch on them, I have taken the close contact gunfighter from Raul Martinez. I found it to be an outstanding course. I find Raul and his team of guys, Dan, Mark Olson, to be amazing dudes in their own right. They're not just great shooters. They're fit guys, are very intelligent guys, very articulate guys. They have a lot of knowledge at a lot of levels. I'm going to say broad and deep. And I've always really respected that about how Raul picks his team. And he always puts those guys in the front, which I really, really enjoy about Raul. He's never wanted to be the man. He understands that he is, and he understands the responsibility he has to that, but he always is putting his guys in a position to be in front of people because he recognizes the talents that they have and how they can impact people. And they were certainly doing that this weekend. He had Mark with him, Mark Olson, who I got to know a little bit, watch shoot, outstanding shooter. And that said, that is a course that you really have to know what you're getting yourself into. I don't know. I'm going to be honest, like in terms of like a critique for events that may want to have these combative types sessions at them. This is a very specific clientele that you're going after here. I don't think that most people going to like a range day event, unless they're going specifically to see Raul, right? And this would be a great opportunity for people that were in that region. It's like, oh, Raul's going to be at this event for the value of the value that I'm getting for the money that I'm paying to be at this event. This is an outstanding value, because then I'm going to get some other shooting, some other instruction from somebody else during the same time. I see that as being like the biggest draw, just going, holy shit, if I hadn't taken this before and you want to take it, that is your opportunity to do it. What an outstanding opportunity. But in going to these events and looking around, I think most people are there for the shooting component.
Yes.
And also they're not, I don't know that a lot of people really think about the combatives component in general. I think they've chosen the gun as their self-defense, and they're not thinking outside of that. Not yet. I think
that class probably gives you a lot of insight into what really is going to be the case versus what you think is going to be the case.
I think it does a really good job of at least changing your mindset a little bit to be thinking differently.
Yeah.
Again, going back to the long days, this is a very physical class. So to be, with Raul in that session for 8 hours period, 6 to 8 hours, it's very physical. And I'm going to say it's extremely physical.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to that or not quite sure what you're signing up for, you just signed up for ARD and you got,
or if you got put in that class.
You got put in that class, that's going to be rough. I'm just tell you right now, it's going to be rough. You really have to have a high level of mental and physical, and I would just say intestinal preparation and intestinal fortitude to go into this thing. The other thing is it's not gentle. I mean, it's rough. There is risk associated with any of this type of training, whether you're on the firearms range or at the close contact gunfighter. You need to be prepared for this. So you need to be physically prepared for this, and you need to know you're going to be beat up at the end of the day. When I took that course, I was sore for days. I had sim round marks, on my body. We were rolling around in DG, so we were all banged up, scratched up. I had beef jerky on my forearms and, my low back and things like that. It's just my knees were trashed. That's what it is, right? And so you need to be prepared for it. I'm not saying you can listen to my review on that class. I did a long review on that, review on that session when I took it a little over a year ago now, and I go through all the detail on it. I loved it, and I would go back, and I intend on doing that. But and I recommend it if you're prepared, right? So I don't know that everybody was prepared for that going in for their own reasons. I mean, it's your responsibility. You signed up for something. You need to take care of business. But there's also like, hey, this is not the session to get into, or not be prepared for if you're not, because of the risks associated with it. And I don't think you're going to be very happy taking it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to like it. If you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you're not going to like it. Again, it's rough. It's combatives. Mm-hmm. So it's, they're not pussyfooting around out there. Let's just put it that way.
It's a tough class. And I think it's physically demanding, like you said, especially given the circumstances. You're in the heat. It's outside. It's a long day. I think if that's what you want, it's a great opportunity. But for events like that, where it is a 2A or a shooting event, to have that type of a class, I think as an option is awesome. But I think that one should definitely be 100%. That's what you signed up for. That's what you get, as opposed to like, we're kind of filling out the classes and there's a couple people that aren't able to get kind of their first choice. So we'll kind of put them in here. It's going to be a lot for some of those people that are going and expecting a fun shooting day. And then they're kind of rolling around, like you said, on the ground, having somebody try to steal their gun from them.
Again, yeah, exactly. And that's the participants' responsibility.
Yeah.
To know that. So I'm just putting it out there now. I highly recommend that session.
Yeah.
To anybody that is interested in thinking beyond, I'm going to be first on the draw every time, and whenever this thing that I've concocted in my head, or this particular event where I have to defend myself, family, or loved ones happens, then all the things that I practice on the flat range in front of paper or steel or whatever, where I'm going to get that, I have my sub-second draw, or whatever is going to save me. When you get to the point where when you're thinking about, well, what if it doesn't go that way?
Yeah.
This is a fantastic session for this. This is like bridging the gap between, all right, well, that same person I was just talking about might go to like, well, I should do some blade work then. I should work on that. Like what happens then? Or I should work on my grappling. Yeah, you should at some point. But again, there's like this in-between stage of like, well, what happens if that doesn't go very well? I'll just leave it at that. Go listen to the review on Raul Martinez's Close Contact Gunfighter from Rogue Methods. It's awesome. It's an awesome session, and I tried to detail out as much as I could to give people some insight to it. And obviously, he posts a lot of videos, so there's no surprises when you show up. Mm-hmm. Moving on was Sam Houston, and I think what it was called was unconventional shooting positions.
Sounds about right.
With the carbine.
Yes.
And I like the idea of this class. While I've not taken it from him, I've taken some similar stuff where you've had to challenge yourself outside of standing,
yes,
or kneeling, or even laying prone. Mm-hmm. It's all the things in between. Other than that, I don't know what feedback or what things did you hear about it.
I didn't take that class, but I think that is something that I'm definitely interested in taking. I took a class with Bruiser Industries with you, Scope Carbine, and as I'm kind of moving into the rest of 23 and 24, I'm trying to get in a little bit more long-range shooting. And so I found that in like PRS style or long-range shooting, positional shooting is way more important than it is in kind of any of the other classes that I've taken, and kind of being able to find stability in the platform from positions that you're not necessarily comfortable in, just your normal 3 standing, kneeling, prone, has a lot of practicality in like a real world application and also in competition. And so I think that at least the kind of the few video clips and the feedback I got, everybody kind of enjoyed that class. And it kind of mixed a lot of different stuff that you don't traditionally work on, and kind of all, I feel like there's a kind of 2 different kinds of classes or categories. You have like your kind of standard rifle pistol stuff, and then you kind of have all like your exotic stuff, like your vehicle, your CQB, your long range, like all these kind of nuanced things. So I think once you need to start in that area, kind of get your fundamentals dialed, but then there's kind of all this other stuff that's out there that you can learn. And I think that this is one of those classes that kind of offers kind of a nuance and a new way to look at stuff, that it's like once you kind of know that, like, oh yeah, that 25-yard C-zone steel shot is pretty basic now. Well, did you try doing it leaning outside a cover or like bent over in this manner? And how do you find stability in your platform doing that so that you can not only hit at 25, but hit at 100, 200, et cetera? Yeah,
that's a really great way of explaining it. You just mentioned Joe over at Bruiser and what we did there. I hadn't done as much barricade or positional shooting in any course ever until we went to
that was a huge.
It was an eye opener.
Yeah, enormous.
It was an eye opener. We had all kinds of different props, if you will. Like most people are familiar with like the VTAC barricades, right? Whatever. Those are very popular. They're kind of everywhere, and they're good. There's good value there, but it's almost predictable.
Yeah.
If you've done them enough times. And so being around in different things,
just like how he has like the ladder set up where like you're going through portholes or windows, and like the tank trap is like unstable. Like there's just like a lot of applicability for like, oh, where can I find like stability for longer shots? Like it's not till you shoot longer distance you don't think about, but then it's very applicable for closer stuff. Like the whole goal is to try to make your platform as stable as possible so you can get your dot to settle so you can put it on target. And so I thought that was really cool. And so, yeah, I would love to take that class if I have an opportunity. That would be cool.
Same, because when you get into those barricades or whatever, you start recognizing things like, shit, my mobility is not very good.
Not very flexible. Yeah, it's really hard to hold.
Just getting down into a natural shooting position where my natural point of aim is I'm not having to work to get to it. Like, what's the best position? And like not having to try to feel that out for the first time when it counts is probably a good idea, right? And then having somebody standing over you that knows what the hell they're doing,
try it like this, or
like Sam, hey, just move your hand here, or just hey, think about this. those are the nuggets, right, to help you. So it's like you mentioned like the term like exotic. It's just like it's the nuance on all the things that we can typically work, in a on a general flat range or whatever. It's like, okay, let's put this to work in a different environment. So I know there's a lot of people rolling around on the dirt up there on that range that were getting a lot out of that. And it was that nuance is what I was getting from them. Like, hey, I'd never tried this, urban prone position. Also having to get elevation beyond me just laying on my side, right? And worrying about side over bore and things of that nature.
Junkyard prone or shooting it like off like sideways, and like how you account for where your dot is and stuff like that is all stuff until you do it, until you have somebody talk to you about it, like you don't even think about.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to think about with with that particular session is like, who's going to go out there on the range and like put themselves in those really uncomfortable positions unless they're made to, right? Or unless they're being challenged to. And when everybody's kind of suffering, having to go through this awkward thing together, it makes it easier. You also learn that way. I don't think a lot of people go out there and train that way, unless it's for a video or they're in a session. So something to think about there. I think that's a valuable takeaway from those type of sessions, and can't be understated enough. I would love to take a course with Sam. I think, on the note with Sam and kind of what he's doing out there, one of the things he did do during that day, this is another one of those things that you value adds that we got in that break, was Sam did a talk on night vision. And it was supposed to be like a 30-minute talk, and it turned into like an hour because of the Q&A that was going on. He drew a pretty good crowd. There's like, Sam's just going to give a talk over. If fucking Sam is talking about night vision, I am listening.
Awesome. I didn't even know that was going on. I missed that.
I think you were down there winning. I think you were down there winning the G45
might have been.
at that time. But so I sat there and I got to listen and ask questions and hear other people ask questions. And I've seen Sam do some lives and heard him talk before and a little bit, but this was in a different environment. And one of the things about night vision for me is very daunting because there's always so much there. It's like it's a different language. There's different equipment, and I've learned a lot, but seems like there's always something new happening.
It's really technical too. A lot of statistics and like how these different variables account for how clear the tube is and all this stuff.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah. And he's very good. Like, and some people just don't like him for this. Is like just being really fucking honest about that. Like, this shit doesn't matter. This does matter. Mm-hmm. And there's this in between where when should it matter for you, kind of thing. And he's
your application is a lot.
Yeah, and also the truth about what's going on in the night vision industry, and it says you're getting this, but you're not. So if all you're doing is basing your shit on numbers, just be prepared. There's just a lot of information there. So I just wanted to bring that to the table with regard to the value that I got from Sam not being in his course, but being there at the event with him, and I had a couple of other little on the side conversations with him as well. Same with Raul. I got to spend some time with Raul, even though I didn't get into his course. Again, was there with Kyle.
But I think that's one of the great things about these events is that you have all these instructors, all this great information and knowledge that you can kind of pick their brain on a one-on-one basis. I mean, everybody that I've met when I've been to these has been more welcoming and forthcoming and like just willing to engage with you as a person and try to answer questions, and they're just very down to earth. And so it makes it really comfortable for you to ask some questions. And when you have a lot of people that are like-minded, there's some questions that you don't think of. Like you said, when you're around the questions that other people ask are great, and they give you so much information that you wouldn't just pick up, kind of just go into like the one-day course. You come in, you do your 8 hours, and then you leave. Kind of being in the Airbnbs and having meals with these people, like you learn a lot of different things from where they're coming from the instructors, from the students. And this is all kind of part of that experience as opposed to just kind of coming for the class and going home. Yeah,
which is always the highlight for me, are those moments. And so if I'm asked, and Sean always sends out a after action report to all the participants, hey, please help us make this a better event next year. What were the pros? What were the cons, highlights, lowlights, those kinds of things. If this served as that AAR for this event for me and you, I would say the highlight is what you just said. And there's too many of those little conversations or those nuggets or those relationships that got built to even mention. And there was some after hours stuff that was going on there that I thought was super valuable with several guys. Some of the nuggets that I got, like in the breaks with Matt from Eagle were huge. on-the-side conversations with a couple of participants, Matt McCreary out there in Georgia, and a couple other dudes in Don when I was taking Don's class. Just kind of comparing notes and just chat with people about life, about a couple of things, even like outside of the thing. Those are always the highlights for me. And again, that will always be the biggest value.
It's cool being from here. You've said before you kind of feel like an alien out here in California sometimes.
Oh my God.
I feel the same way. And so it's really cool to kind of go to these places and see like, oh, okay, this is not as abnormal. It's not like there's
I'm not a weirdo.
A handful of dudes that I'm hanging out with. Like this is normal in other places. And there's a lot of people that are on kind of that same journey. And it's cool to kind of link up and compare notes and then make those friendships. Like you said, we kind of met at CRW and through Kyle, and now we kind of compare notes and go to a bunch of different things. And I feel like I learned stuff from you in the courses that you've gone through, and hopefully you kind of pick up some stuff from me. And that's how we grow as a community, and that's how we bring more people in. And that's how this thing gets bigger.
Yeah. And again, going back to all the things that go into that, I mean, there's so many great things. Whenever I go to these events, I try to connect with as many people as I can. And the whole content thing is important for me too, because I want to give people opportunities to have the platform to speak about what they do. There was a plan to do a bunch of podcasting while I was out there. It got foiled right from the beginning for events outside of the control of anybody. It's nobody's fault or whatever. And if you were there, you kind of know. I don't want to get into any of the details on it. It was just, there were some unfortunate things that happened. Everybody's okay, which is all that really matters at the end of the day. But I was supposed to meet with Don on Thursday when we got in. We couldn't make that happen. And then I was supposed to meet with Sean. Some other stuff happened. I wasn't able to meet with Sean. And then I was trying to get with Gabe from Cobalt, and maybe even Sam, try to squeeze in a meeting with Sam. And we already kind of went through the itinerary. Nothing could have, like, if anything came up, like a wrinkle or a monkey got thrown into that wrench, or whatever, things were going to fall apart, and that's effectively what happened. That was a tight
timetable.
Yeah, it was so tight. That was my only. If I came back being disappointed about anything, it's just that I wasn't able to get in front of those guys, and stay longer. And I tried. I was like, oh, can we push it an extra day? It just wasn't going to happen. Yeah, it just wasn't going to happen, which just means we got to make up for that later, which is partly the reason why this podcast is coming out as late as it is because I had this plan, to have all this content come out around the same time. And then I was a little bit behind because I didn't get that content, so I had to backfill it. And so we got that content out while I was putting other stuff together in the schedule. And so we're finally here talking about it now. But I will get in front of Don. I will get in front of Sam. I will get in front of Matt. I will get in front of Raul's guys.
Be a good lead up, just like you do with CRW to ARD in maybe 2024.
I really hope so, particularly because I really wanted Sean to be able to talk about the event. I think he does a really good job of articulating, the important things for him. And I don't want to speak for Sean. We'll let him do that when he has the opportunity, but he's doing it for all the right fucking reasons. Yeah. And one of those, again, going back to the vendors, and you've got some swag out here on the table. I mean, this Radiant Raptor charging handle, I mean, what do these things retail at?
$110.
It's $110.
That was a competition win. I think I got 10th place in the competition, and that was what I won.
Yeah, I mean, come on, right?
So they had some really awesome stuff there.
Yeah, but part of the other thing was, this is always like when we go to these events, like, okay, well, who's making all the money here? There's not a lot of money to be made in these things by the time you get all of this stuff together. But there's almost always, and if there isn't, I have a little, you might question why you're going, who you're supporting. I think people should be transparent about this. I'm not saying you shouldn't make money in the firearms industry. Come on. But in this case, the charity that was being donated to was SOCF, which provides support for people from the special operations community and their families. And so the raffle prizes, the raffle tickets, the money that had gone into this, plus, some of the admission fees and things like that from a fundraiser perspective were donated. And when we came into the end of the day Sunday, everybody was exhausted. There was a rep there from SOCF. Everybody had kind of purchased some raffle tickets, and there was kind of this final ask, hey, this is the amount we're at for now. We're going to give everybody, a little bit of an opportunity to buy some more raffle tickets and contribute some more. And I want to say the number was right around like $3 or $4 grand in raffle tickets sold. in like 20 minutes.
I think that was about right. I think it was
they doubled it.
They wanted to get to like, I think the goal was 10.
The goal was 10. They got to like 88 or 9 or something.
And they were like
that.
At 56. And then literally it was probably like $3 or $4 grand and worth of like people just on the spot knowing that it was a good cause and wanting to support the event just came and kind of donated to the cause. It was
awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome to watch and see and the energy around that. And it happened very fast. And, it's just like all you got to do is ask, and people really, for me, it was like, we really do see the value in this event. And we, maybe you weren't sure before you came. And, at the end of the day, people don't do that. Everybody stuck around. Yeah. The place was packed. Full. And which, again, at the end of 2 very long days, 2.5 very long days, I think that says a lot on a Sunday night. People are still there at 8 o'clock at night. Obviously, the value in the raffle prizes was a huge draw, but also just the excitement around, raising those funds for folks and at SOCF and getting that out there. I think that's something that you should absolutely be highlighted. And if you're an event promoter, getting behind an organization like that, I think is one that drives a lot of participation. It did for me. I mean, I walked up there and it was interesting because people are like, no, well, let me get some more raffle tickets, but we were out of cash. Right. And so we were like, how do we get this guy paid? And there was like no internet out there. Yeah. Right. And it was like, well, let's Venmo him. And he's like, I don't know what the Venmo is. So we had to find the Venmo out or whatever. And ultimately, like, people were just like, and then the Venmo spread around and it was just like, it was like watching the ticker, on the lottery or something go up. It was fun to watch. So just, again, special note of that. And thanks to the sponsors and to the promoters out there that helped make all that happen. Just in wrapping up here, look, man, I always like to do a review of these events because I think it's important for people that didn't go that maybe have a little FOMO or people that are a little on the fence about, I don't really know about these events. I've heard bad things. I've heard, or I haven't heard let's just say I haven't heard very good things, or I haven't really heard of any of them. Yeah. We've done a few now, and we've done a couple of these reviews, been to a couple of events, and what I'm watching happen is, where they were very like kind of small micro groups of people, they're starting to expand. Yeah. And and I like to, I guess I hesitate with the word, but it's very inclusive. It doesn't matter if you're, in the beginning stages of your journey in firearms or you're very advanced. There's something for everybody, whether that's being an instructor at one of these events, promoting your product, just being like a participant. Like we had like CRW does like participant tickets where they just spectator tickets where you can just come hang out, maybe do the contests or the challenges or whatever without taking classes. In this case for ARD, you had lots of vendors, lots of folks, a lot of supporting staff that were out there, and they were coming from all over the country. And I think that's the most important part about this is bringing the community together. And so I hope, when people listen to this, like, yeah, maybe I'll consider it. I live not too far from there. There were people at the range that day shooting that had come out. We had the whole half of that range to ourselves, but they were showing up going, what is this?
Happened in CRW too. When we take over, people are very curious and they want to know and wish, I think that.
How come I didn't know?
Yeah, I think it goes like an advertisement side, try to figure out how to promote them because I think there's a lot of people that are interested. And this is going into CRW's 3rd year. I was there for the first 2, and this is my first ARD, but it's their 2nd one. Yep. They're very similar in how they're running things. I think this one that we went to is about the size of like CRW's first year. And if it next year grows the same way CRW did into their year 2, it's going to be nothing but up because like the instructor quality is great. The community is always amazing. And I think, again, seeing more people that are kind of looking to do a lot of the same stuff that you and I both do is really cool. And there's a lot of people out there that are interested. And when they see it, I'm sure would be interested to try to sign up and do that again the next year. And that's how you kind of grow these events and get bigger.
Yeah, I agree. No matter where you are, like if you think like you're weird, right? Maybe you are where you are, I don't know. But I guess what I would say, just kind of
a lot of us weirdos out there.
Let's go fucking be weird together. Yeah. As my good friend Harris would say, who I met down in Georgia a few months back with Praycor and Counting Coup, like, dude, stay weird. Yeah. Let's be weird together and get to these events and do stuff and take the weirdness back and spread the word.
Because you're going to make a lot of friends. You're going to like the camaraderie and stuff, and then you're gonna find more people to go to these events. And again, you can share more knowledge and bring more people in, and that's what it's all about. It's just really just growing this community and finding people to be weird with.
Yeah, exactly. So you promoters out there, you event people that are aspiring to do events and get together, reach out to guys like Sean over at Exoteric Group out there in Atlanta. That dude is nothing but helpful and just wants to grow the community in the right kind of way for the right reasons. I mean, he's just a good stand-up dude. In general, he's just a good guy. He's just one of the good ones, and he's doing a really good job. And I think he's figured out a fairly good formula. It might not be the right formula for you, but just like anything else, I think, we got to share these ideas, and I know he'd be willing to help. So, reach out to Sean. For those people that are curious about ARD, follow Atlanta Range Day and Exoteric Group on Instagram. You'll see they do a very good job of putting out and promoting their stuff there. If you're local in the Atlanta area, check out Exoteric Group for their instruction, firearms instruction. They teach all different levels of clients and participants. They do group classes. They do one-on-one stuff.
I think that's one of the cool things with ARD is that those instructors got together, and now you're seeing a couple collaborative kind of things. I think Eagle Tactics is going to do something with Exoteric Group, and then he's also going to do something with Kyle and Manzano Tactical, and just kind of, again, it's even the instructors are in the community. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're kind of their own thing. Like, they're networking and kind of meeting new people, and they're trying to bring instruction to other areas of the country and kind of help grow just the community in general. And I think that's great. And also them coming out to California. I mean, I know we're hungry out here for great instruction. I know this can kind of be, quote, behind enemy lines, but I think there's a ton of students looking to improve out here, and we're looking for good value. I mean, that's one of these things that these events bring. You get a ton of instructors, a lot of value, and stuff that they're taking care of for you, as far as food and prizes and all that stuff. So it's not just getting the value of the class, but also getting all that other stuff on top is great. But all these instructors that come out to take their classes, it would be awesome too.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I know I've made a couple of connections that have sort of initiated some of those things to happen, and nothing fires me up more than that is watching good people, go out to be able to help and have the reach to help more people. Yeah. And that starts with people having to reach out to people. So don't be afraid to do that. So I'm here if people are interested. If you're an instructor and you want a connection, and you'd like to maybe get connected and to get the invite to come out and instruct. I mean, going back to ARD, I mean, this year they had 6 instructors, right? I think that's where some of these other events started. Like we've mentioned CRW a bunch of times. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of all these guys that are doing this stuff, but that started about 6, and this year it's going to be 12.
Right.
I mean, it exponentially gotten bigger, and now people are reaching out. We've got some. Their instructors will come across the country. Kyle flew across the country, to do this if they feel like there's there's an opportunity for them. So if you're thinking about putting together an event, if you have questions about it, if you need to make connections, again, Sean Exoteric is a great guy to talk to. If you need or an introduction or whatever, please feel free. You can DM me. I'll do my best. I'll put you in touch with the people. In the meantime, go out and be on the lookout for, like I said, ARD 2024. It's definitely happening. I don't know if the dates have been released yet, but pay attention. Get on the email list. And the reason I say this is that the email was, I haven't seen any more organization to the email stuff. Usually that can get annoying. This was like spot on. So
just to the minute as far as what the schedule was. It was pretty.
Get on the list. And Sean's very responsive. He responds to everybody, and so does the rest of the team. He's got a good crew out there. So be on the lookout for that. And then for like I said, you guys out there that are aspiring event holders or promoters, keep doing that. Yeah. Keep putting these types of things together, and let me know when and where they are, because I'm always interested in getting out and seeing what's going on. Like, maybe I'll bring Josh along with me.
Awesome. Can't wait. And I say, and if you're on the fence about attending one of these, you should for sure go check it out. These are a great way to get an introduction, and the community's awesome, and everybody's looking just to get better. So it doesn't matter if you're just getting started in the firearms or if you've been shooting for a while. If you're looking to try to step up your training and get better, these are awesome opportunities to sample a couple different instructors, see kind of what different instruction is like, what you do, what you don't like, and then track these guys down and take them for classes kind of on their own. Seek them out, because they teach a lot of different stuff. This is just a small sample of what they have to offer, so you should go check them out. Try
Josh, thanks for your time, man. Thanks for coming down on a Sunday. We're in here on the weekend recording this thing on your free time. I always appreciate that. Let's go be weird.
Let's do it.